Red Bull has finally broken its silence on Max Verstappen's future, and this could be bad news for Max and his fans. According to former F1 driver Ralf Schumacher, the relationship between Verstappen and Red Bull has seriously broken down amid ongoing rumours that the four-time world champion could leave the team in 2026. And things could get even more interesting, as Red Bull may already have a potential replacement in mind, Carlos Sainz. Reports from Spain suggest that negotiations surrounding Sainz's future are now in their final stages. If Verstappen decides to leave Red Bull, Sainz could be one of the leading candidates to take his seat. But that's not all. Red Bull isn't just looking at established names, they've also got a young gun waiting in the wings, and he's about to get his shot behind the wheel. So, is Red Bull already preparing for life without Max Verstappen? Could Carlos Sainz really become his replacement? And who is this academy driver being lined up as the future of the team? Let's get into it. Let's start with the story that's dominating every F1 paddock conversation right now, Max Verstappen's future at Red Bull. Speaking out during F1's summer break, Ralf Schumacher didn't hold back. The former Grand Prix winner says something has genuinely broken down between Verstappen and the team he's been with since 2016, the team he's won all four of his world championships with. Here's why this matters so much. Verstappen has an exit clause written into his Red Bull contract. It's been the subject of speculation for months, but here's the key detail. That clause only activates under specific conditions tied to Red Bull's position in the championship. And going into the summer break, Red Bull find themselves outside the top two in the constructors' standings, which means the clause is now live. Verstappen genuinely has the freedom to walk if he chooses to use it. Now, according to Schumacher, this isn't the usual seasonal noise. He's pointed out that in the past, when Verstappen flirted with a Mercedes move, it always felt like background chatter, the kind of thing that got talked about but never really threatened to happen. This time feels different. Schumacher believes Verstappen held on to faith in Red Bull's project for a long time, hoping the team could turn its form around. But after a difficult run of results, including a high-profile retirement at the British Grand Prix, that patience appears to have run out. So where could Verstappen end up? McLaren is the name on everyone's lips. It's no secret that Lando Norris has been winning races in that car this season, and the theory goes that Verstappen looks at that McLaren and believes he could extract even more from it than Norris currently is. Adding fuel to the fire, Verstappen's longtime race engineer Giampiero Lambiase is already set to join McLaren by 2028, so there's already a bridge being built between Verstappen's inner circle and Woking. Aston Martin has also been thrown into the mix as a dark horse destination, though McLaren remains the far more talked about scenario. What makes this saga so fascinating is the psychology of it. Insiders suggest Red Bull was frustrated that Verstappen didn't publicly commit to the team or rule out the exit clause when he had the chance at his home race, no less, the Red Bull Ring. That silence, some believe, is exactly what pushed Red Bull to start exploring other options. Which brings us to our next big story. While the Verstappen soap opera plays out, a second connected storyline is heating up fast. Carlos Sainz. The 31-year-old Spaniard is currently having a season to forget. His current team has been struggling badly with an overweight car in 2026, and Sainz has increasingly looked like a driver ready to walk away and find a more competitive home. Now, reports out of Spain suggest talks around his next move are entering their decisive phase. Two destinations keep coming up. The first is Audi, a team Sainz has actually turned down once before, as the German manufacturer builds up its new F1 project. The second, and by far the more explosive option, is Red Bull. Think about the timing here. If Verstappen genuinely does trigger that exit clause and leaves for McLaren, Red Bull suddenly has a vacant seat at the very top of the grid, a seat that needs a proven race-winning driver to fill it. Sainz, a multiple Grand Prix winner with experience across multiple front-running teams, fits that profile perfectly. Schumacher himself has raised an interesting angle here too. He's pointed out that Sainz reportedly turned down an approach from Williams recently, and he's openly wondered whether that decision is connected to whispers that a Red Bull seat could be opening up. It's a logical dot to connect. Why commit to a midfield team if a genuine front-running opportunity might be just months away? Of course, none of this is confirmed. Red Bull hasn't made any official contact announcement, and Sainz hasn't said a word about a switch to Milton Keynes. But when you line up the timing Verstappen's exit clause going live, Schumacher's comments about a broken relationship, and now reports of Sainz's negotiations reaching a decisive stage, it starts to look like more than coincidence. Here's a name you need to know, because Red Bull clearly think he's part of the long-term picture, regardless of what happens with Verstappen and Sainz. Nikola Solov, the Bulgarian driver on Red Bull's junior books since the end of 2024, has been described as next in line for a future Red Bull seat. And later this month, he's set to get his first taste of an F1 car in a test at Imola. Solov's results back up the hype. He finished second in the F3 Championship back in 2025, and right now he's leading the F2 standings, ahead of rivals like Gabriele Mini. For a young driver on the Red Bull ladder, that's about as strong a case as you can make for a future promotion. Now, realistically, Solov isn't about to jump straight into a race seat this season. But tests like the one coming up at Imola are exactly how Red Bull evaluates its young talent for the future, especially with so much uncertainty surrounding the senior lineup right now. If Verstappen does leave and Sainz comes in to replace him, that still leaves the second Red Bull seat very much up for grabs longer term. And a driver who's leading F2 and already impressing the team behind closed doors is exactly the kind of prospect Red Bull likes to fast-track. Keep this name in your back pocket. Nikola Solov might not be a headline story today, but by next season, he very well could be. So let's bring it all together. Ralf Schumacher believes the bond between Max Verstappen and Red Bull is genuinely broken, with McLaren emerging as his most talked-about destination. Carlos Sainz's camp is reportedly deep in negotiations that could see him land in a Red Bull seat if Verstappen walks. And in the background, Red Bull's academy is already grooming the next generation, with Nikola Solov set for his first taste of F1 machinery at Imola. 3 storylines, all connected by one simple question. Is this the beginning of the end for Max Verstappen at Red Bull? We're heading toward the back half of the 2026 season, and if the rumors are right, the next few race weekends could bring some of the biggest driver market news in years. What do you think? Does Verstappen actually leave Red Bull for McLaren? Or is this just more summer break silly season noise? Drop your prediction in the comments, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update on this story, and I'll see you in the next video.
Verstappen, and they're still continuing on. He brushes the gravel.
Max Verstappen breaks silence and demands a penalty after a controversial overtake battle with Lewis Hamilton at the Austrian Grand Prix. The Red Bull star believed Hamilton forced him off the track during their intense wheel-to-wheel fight and called for the Ferrari driver to be penalised. However, Hamilton brushed off the complaint with a bold response, saying, "You don't expect to go around the outside of a champion. Max should have backed out." The Austrian Grand Prix delivered one of the most electric moments of the 2026 Formula One season, not from the front of the field, not from the podium, but from a mid-race battle that had fans on the edge of their seats and 2 of the greatest drivers of all time going absolutely door-to-door at the Red Bull ring. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, 2 former world title rivals, 2 champions with history, and when those 2 names end up side by side on track, you better believe things are going to get spicy. Today, we are breaking down everything that happened between Hamilton and Verstappen in Austria, the lap 11 flashpoint, the controversial turn 6 squeeze, Verstappen's furious radio message demanding a penalty, the steward's decision, Hamilton's ice-cold response, and what it all means heading into the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Stay with us, because this one is a story. To understand just how big this battle was, you need to understand where both drivers came into Austria. Lewis Hamilton started the race from 3rd on the grid, driving for Ferrari after his high-profile move from Mercedes at the start of this season. He'd just come off a stunning victory in Barcelona, a win that sent shockwaves through the paddock and had people wondering whether Hamilton in red was going to be a genuine title threat. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, had already had a nightmare weekend before a single race lap was even completed. He crashed his Red Bull into the Turn 9 barriers during Q3 qualifying on Saturday, an incident Red Bull later attributed to a mechanical defect. He had to start Sunday's race from 5th, and he had a massive point to prove, especially at a circuit that literally carries his team's name. George Russell led from pole in the Mercedes, with Hamilton pushing hard in second. And then, as early as lap 11, the race completely changed. By lap 11, Verstappen had fought his way up to third and was right on Hamilton's rear wing, applying serious pressure. Ferrari's tyres were already beginning to show signs of struggle, and Verstappen smelled blood. He made his move into turn 3, a brave, aggressive lunge that pushed Hamilton aside and put the Red Bull ahead momentarily. But Hamilton wasn't done. He switched back immediately at turn 4, reclaimed the position, and suddenly the two of them were going wheel to wheel through the sweeping section of the circuit. Then came the critical moment. Verstappen, carrying momentum and refusing to back off, attempted to go around the outside at turn 6. Hamilton, who was ahead at the apex, held his line and held it firm. The Red Bull was slowly squeezed towards the gravel. Two wheels dipped off the track, Verstappen had nowhere to go, and he had to lift. The crowd went absolutely wild. But over team radio, Verstappen was furious. His words were immediate and direct. "That's a penalty. Clear penalty." The stewards noted the incident as a possible case of a driver forcing another off the track. They reviewed the footage. And then, no further action was taken. When the dust settled after the race, Hamilton was informed of Verstappen's penalty call, and his response? Absolutely ice cold. "He went off the outside," Hamilton said. "You don't expect to go around the outside of a champion. I wouldn't expect to go around the outside of him there and hold the line. He was behind at the apex, and therefore he should have backed out. But he didn't. I left him just enough room." There it is. 7-time world champion, 41 years old, racing in red for Ferrari and still delivering that kind of statement without even blinking. Hamilton is essentially saying he did nothing wrong, that the laws of racing apply even to Max Verstappen. If you're not ahead at the apex, you don't get to hold the outside line and expect the other driver to give you the road. And the stewards agreed. No penalty, racing incident. Move on. What makes this even more fascinating is the psychological element. Hamilton didn't just defend physically, he defended with the confidence of a man who knows exactly what he's doing. He knew the rules, he knew his position on track, and he was executed. Here's where the story gets even better. After the first round of pit stops, Verstappen came back for more. But this time, he adjusted. He didn't go outside. Instead, he drove deep to the inside at turn 6, used the inside line to ease Hamilton wide, and completed a clean, decisive overtake that stuck.